All right, welcome back, everybody, to the International Collector Series. This is episode 3. We have Lorik here from the UK, aka Ghost Collects. What's up, Lorik?
Yeah, man, how's it going? Yeah, really good. Glad to have the opportunity to talk to you, and this will be fun. I've been watching your content for a while, so yes, thank you very much for having the opportunity. It's cool.
Appreciate it. Thank you for joining. Which part of the UK are you based currently?
So I am smack bang in the centre of central London. So I'm near like Madame Tussauds, Baker Street
Yeah,
area. So I'm very like accessible, so to
yeah.
speak.
That's awesome.
But yeah, born and raised here in London. I've been here all my life, so home is home.
That is amazing. I was in the UK solo traveling about 7, 8 years ago. Um, what's that market? Bordeaux? No.
Borough Market, maybe.
Yeah, Borough Market. Yeah, that was probably one of the best
Yeah,
places that I went because I was definitely on a budget. So I was looking for food on budget,
100%.
but good food for sure. But yeah, thank you so much for getting on with us. I know it's late there, but would love to kind of get your take on sort of your experience as a collector of trading cards in the UK, challenges, obviously some maybe advantages of being in the UK. But I know like UK collector base is huge, right?
Yeah, I think it's definitely grown over the past couple of years. I think it took some time to establish itself just because the US is so far ahead in terms of sort of market base and obviously the big auction marketplaces like Golden and such. But I think now we're definitely seeing the UK scene develop to a place where there is a lot of collectors out there. There's a new
Yeah.
generation of collectors coming up now as well. Following all different sports. I think one of the good things about sports card collecting and trading collectibles is that there are so many different sports that you can collect now.
Exactly.
So many
Exactly.
different options. It's not limited to sports, really, isn't it? You've seen the big sort of Marvel boom
Hmm.
happen, and Formula One is obviously picking up massively as well. I can see the background. Got the Miami
Yeah.
GP. Can't wait for that. It's going to be awesome. And so yeah, there's a massive customer base at the moment, and it's only growing.
Yeah.
We've quite a few card shows recently, not only in the London sort of South England area, but also up north. And those are
Mm.
going to probably continue to establish themselves as sort of regular yearly or biannual
Yeah.
events, which will be great for the upcoming collectors and established collectors to sort of interact with everyone.
Yeah.
And so
That's
yeah,
awesome.
the UK marketplace is massive at the moment, and it's really growing.
Yeah.
So
And I see
can't wait
you
to see
wearing a Chelsea jersey there. What kind of categories do you collect currently?
So I am your old school set collector. So I
Okay.
collect basically sets of Chelsea and F1 cards. So
Mm,
those are like my two main niches. But
gotcha.
for me, because I follow so many different sports. I mean, I follow the NFL, I follow NBA. From snooker to tennis, and there's
Nice.
so many different avenues. Which all these different interests can be quite expensive as a collector because you all of a sudden looking at like NBA cards and NFL cards and tennis cards, and it's like, I have to collect all this stuff.
Right.
But yeah, I've sort of honed in on my collecting, and I'm focused mainly on Chelsea and F1. I thought I'd
Gotcha.
wear my favorite kit today just to be
Yeah,
present.
looks great. I don't know if some of our audience hate Chelsea though, but we'll see.
Yeah, there probably will be quite a few people listening to this that are probably not going to
Exactly.
listen any further. But hey,
Um, it is what it is. You gotta support your team. Like one question I have for you is: so when I walk into a showroom in the States, whether it's in the West Coast, East Coast, the South, wherever, the primary categories of sports cards, at least within the sports card umbrella, that I see are basketball, football, and baseball. And even in that, I would say baseball is probably still bigger than the other two. So maybe
mm,
like 40 and then 30-30. I'm throwing out numbers here. What do you think is sort of like the generic sort of like, distribution in the UK? Because I imagine soccer being so much bigger or football being so much bigger there. I wonder if the proportion is different.
it's interesting you say that because I went to my first card show that was hosted by UK Box Breaks here in central London at the Tottenham Stadium, which was an amazing event. Big shout out to them for
What? That's
hosting.
insane. What?
Yeah, and they managed to hire it out, and it got a great turnout, and it was awesome. And one of the things that I did notice at this card show was the wide distribution of offerings.
Hmm.
There wasn't really a a particular sport or a particular category of card, let's say, that was very dominant. I think one of the things that's also very popular in the UK is Pokemon. That was quite dominant, I would say. I think pretty
Gotcha.
much every other stand you would go across had some sort of Pokemon offering. But yeah, I think mainly you would look at soccer or football cards. Those are probably the most popular.
Mm-hmm.
There was a few stands that had NFL and NBA, but I
Gotcha.
think they were pretty much scattered around the whole show.
Mm.
And so I think generally there is, let's say, a delay in the demand for the American sports like NBA and NFL,
Mm-hmm.
just because soccer is so predominant here in the UK.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think overall, it's as I say, it's a growing market, and
Yeah.
the sheer volume of cards that's going to come through the UK is only going to grow. And so,
For sure.
yeah, I would say the card show was fairly well distributed. I'd say across all the sports.
That's awesome because I have friends and myself. I kind of consider myself kind of in the minority category collector or at least hunter in showrooms. Like when we go into showroom, we don't expect more than like 5 tables out of 400 tables to have anything meaningfully like soccer or Formula One, tennis, these type of things,
Mm.
like Game of Thrones, Harry Potter. Like these are some weird things that I kind of look for. But that's awesome that's more sort of like evenly distributed across other categories. I guess, Lorik, one question for you is how did you yourself actually get into collecting trading cards?
I think for the majority of people in the UK, it starts off when you're a young kid in the playground.
Oh,
We what we used to do is we used to buy cards and bring them into school and trade them on the playground. And
interesting.
so
Okay.
we had some majority of back in the day it was literally only soccer that was available. So we would go into our
Mm,
local newsagent stores, buy up a couple of packs of cards, rip them open, see what we got. If we got anything nice, we'd probably keep it for ourselves or hold it for trades in the playground, and that's where it starts. Um,
interesting.
Also, there's a massive demand for stickers here in the UK. So stickers has
Hmm.
been a massive thing for quite a while, especially the soccer stickers. Um, I remember collecting the early Premier League stickers, from '99, 2000,
Yeah.
and I think that's mainly where I started my collecting journey. I think the majority of people in the UK will relate
Mm.
where they start their journey very early on, and then there's a massive hiatus. Once you sort of go into that sort of, let's say, primary,
Adolescent,
secondary
adult, right?
phase.
Hmm.
Exactly. So you sort of you lose that adolescent phase of collecting, and then you sort of pick it back up when you see all the different types of cards that are available. And so for me, I followed the exact same pattern. I collected when I was very young. I stopped for a good 10, 15 years. And then
Hmm.
maybe in the last year or two, I would say I've started collecting sort of very regularly and keeping
Yeah.
an eye on the market, interacting with people in the community, not only here in the UK, but abroad as well.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think that's where I am at the moment. My
That's awesome.
collecting started with stickers. So I collect UEFA Champions League, Premier League, World Cup, and European Championship stickers.
Hmm.
I've got them all from 1997 onwards in consecutive years. So I've basically
Wow.
got 12 to 13 binders of stickers. Full. I think it's like I did a count the other day, and it was like 31,000 stickers. I think I've got,
Oh my
which is
gosh.
pretty significant. It's taking up
It
a lot of
is.
space in that wardrobe back there, so I might need to figure out some storage solutions. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's where it started for me. That's where the journey started, and then I sort of dabbled in the card
Hmm.
collecting. But for me, when I started card collecting, I just sort of threw my money at it, and
Hmm.
whatever I could find, whether it was lots or singles that I liked, or and again from all the different sports,
Hmm.
wherever I had money, I just throw it, and I just get all these random cards in, and I didn't really have like a generic direction as to what I wanted to do,
Gotcha.
and that's where you sort of. I think one of the things with collecting is you sort of just have to dip your foot in the water and
Hmm.
then get used to what you want and figure out your way through it.
For sure.
Um, and that's definitely where it headed for me.
Gotcha.
And now, obviously, I
That's
only
cool.
collect Chelsea and F1 mainly. Dabble here and there, of course,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
in case I like something. In case I
right.
see something like, I'll definitely go in for it. But yeah, it's definitely a much more concentrated direction now with my collecting.
Gotcha. Why do you think that stickers is a much popular collectible out in the UK, especially for soccer stickers versus while I think stickers for a lot of the vintages in soccer do have popularity here, I think when it truly comes down to like card or sticker for anything that was made in the late 90s or early 2000s, I think I've seen more cards being circulated in America. Why do you think that the draw to the sticker is still present in the UK?
Well, I think the main thing behind it is accessibility. I
Mm,
think if you look at generic allocation of cards versus stickers, UK
hmm.
versus US, in comparison to general
I
allocation for
see.
cards, US versus UK,
Hmm.
you can go into any local store and buy a packet of stickers or a box of stickers. And there's
Gotcha.
stores literally 5 minutes or within a 5 mile radius, you've got
Yeah.
10, 15 stores, and so we had that accessibility early on with stickers, and it builds that nostalgia as well with stickers. You go
Yeah,
in, you
that makes
rip it,
sense.
that feeling of having stickers. Whereas with cards, it's very different. We would have to struggle, especially early on in maybe the past 5 or 6 years. We would struggle to get product. Boxes would be very expensive to
Right.
ship from the US, and not only that, there was no established UK collectors which had allocation from the manufacturers like Panini,
Mm,
Top, Terra, etc. And so I think that's mainly where the difference is with stickers versus cards. And also again, it's just the time frames. We've been collecting stickers for so much longer than cards, just because of that level of accessibility.
gotcha.
So yeah, it's a very different
That
scene.
makes
But
sense.
again, cards is sort of a bit of a delay, but it's still growing into that market.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, and you can speak for your own experience, obviously, and also add in flavors from your community that you're part of in the UK. How do you generally do your transactions, like buying, selling, and trading cards? Which platforms do you use? Are there or is it mostly in person? Do you actually use different platforms? It could be multiple. What is your primary way of transacting your cards?
I think the majority of people will say the same thing, but I think eBay is probably
I see.
where the majority of cards nowadays, especially ones that are in demand, are
Mm-hmm.
placed. Um,
Gotcha.
I think obviously one of the things, the whole fee bay thing, and high fees with associated with buying and selling on eBay, that's another conversation. But I think overall eBay has been great for
Mm-hmm.
accessing a completely new market.
Gotcha.
I think obviously you look at the communities that are built, especially in the UK, on Discord and Facebook. There's massive communities on Facebook and Discord now from
Mm-hmm.
all the not only individual breakers but people starting groups. Just in a if let's say they're starting a team collection or if a player
Mm-hmm.
collection, they'll start a Discord, get a community in, start a Facebook chat or a group, and that way there's a lot more accessibility to cards. I think also again the fact that there is that internationally established market over in the US mainly,
Mm-hmm.
people had more accessibility, accessing groups on Facebook, for example.
Yeah.
And generally, the product is just everywhere at the moment. Whatever you need nowadays is pretty much available, whether it be on eBay, Discord,
Makes
Facebook.
sense.
I think one of the
Makes
things
sense.
that obviously people are concerned about is the level of trust. If you don't
Mm-hmm.
buy on eBay, you don't have that buyer protection or seller protection on something like uh, Discord or Facebook, for example. You'd
Mm-hmm.
have to establish a form of trust with that person, and not a lot of people are very good at building that connection with fellow traders and
Right.
sort of noticing any red flags in transactions or making sure that they're using goods and services rather than friends and family, protecting themselves first. And so, yeah, it's eBay is definitely the one that I would say has
Got
definitely
it.
put me in a position to collect. And
Mm-hmm.
hopefully, there's many more platforms in the future that will allow us to do the same.
Yeah, no, that's a very, very interesting point. And so far, when I talk to collectors outside of the US, I think eBay still stands as the number one place for buying, selling. And it is for the US as well. But I think there are perhaps different categories of cards that can be found on eBay versus other auction platforms and marketplaces, which is interesting. But I mean, I do think that there's that like familiarity part that you can trust eBay, right? You may not trust the end buyer or the seller, but you trust eBay's program, eBay's protection. eBay's operations to get the card to you, or to sell the card in an appropriate way. So there's that familiarity, and also just sheer volume. There's a lot of volume transactions happening on eBay from all categories and ranges of value of cards. So I think that is also there. I mean, I do think that there are many people who are trying to kind of, take a piece of the pie from the eBay pie right now, right? Kind of finding niche areas, or even like just creating something that's very similar to eBay, but hoping to take a market share in general out of it. But I do think that hopefully, like obviously eBay is like the platform, for a global platform for any resale items. But for sports cards itself, like it's such a unique, and any collectible item, it's such a unique like asset category that requires more attention than just like, oh, can it be returned in 30 days, like, or how should it be handled, how should it be packaged, like all those things are so incredibly different than, say, selling like, I don't know, a book on eBay, or selling like a car on eBay. I know people sell cars on eBay as well. So I think it requires just like different like attributes to really consider for like longevity of like the marketplace, which I think a lot of the new up and coming marketplaces, and of course startups as well, are trying to capture. But in it, my hope is that they also think about the global like expectation, and like the global opportunity as well, because I do think that there's a lot of you know like things that we can solve for non-America based collectors who just have like a very, not very, but definitely a slight disadvantage, just because, purely because of the region that they're in, and whether it's diversity of cards, volume of cards, frequency of cards, right?
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
so, so that leads to our next question, Lorik, is what would you say is the biggest challenge of being a collector in the UK, say, versus the Americas, or Asia, or Africa?
Yeah, I think we've touched upon it slightly in a few points raised already. Obviously, one of those being accessibility. I think generally, if you look at the allocation of products from the major manufacturers in the US versus the UK, there is definitely a trend towards giving more product to the US. I think number one, just because of the customer base that's already established. You look at the number of card stores in the US versus the UK. There's literally no comparison.
Right.
The ability to open up a store here in the UK, there's a lot of boundaries, and you
Mm,
know, because we're so used to trading on online marketplaces and Facebook
yeah.
and Discord and other communities, it is very difficult for people to establish a typical store.
Hmm.
Kev at Forest Sports Trading, shout out to Kev if he's listening. He recently opened and closed a card sticker sports trading collectible store in Brighton. And I can imagine the challenges associated with that, just because the footfall is probably going to be very varied. You're not going to get
Hmm.
consistent customers walking through the door. Whereas,
Right.
in a region in the US, you've got people who are regularly going to be looking for new
Right.
cards, really going to be asking for new
Mm,
product boxes, packs, singles, lots, etc., etc.
yeah.
So that's probably one point I'd start off with. The accessibility, the card stores is another one.
Hmm.
I think overall, mainly, even there's still eBay, for example. We're still using eBay regularly as UK collectors. The export fees and postage costs is obviously something that,
Yeah.
from our perspective, we have to consider when we're buying a card. It may say $75, which is £50 sterling, but then you've got an
Yeah.
additional $50 for postage. You then have, when the card arrives in the UK, there's no direct communication between eBay and us most of the time on the export fees. How much are we having to pay? And if the listing is not set up correctly, a
Hmm.
card may come in that's worth $250, and you may have to pay the same amount in export fees due to the postage. And so, from a net perspective, does it
Hmm.
make sense for us to even purchase the card in the first place?
Right.
Probably not.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's also one of the massive issues as well, is the postage and export fees. I think it's a
Yeah.
massive challenge that big firms are always trying to avoid. One of the companies that I need to give a big shout out to is Ship My Cards.
Hmm.
Those guys are awesome with dealing with international collectors. I think initiatives like that, for example, that allow you to pay less in export fees, pay less in postage, and sort of make the experience more enjoyable. Because I think if you're buying a car that you sort of regret paying postage for or export fees,
Yeah,
I think it takes away from the enjoyment. And so
for
the
sure.
guys at Cars, for example, doing a great job with accessibility to that international market, not
Yeah,
only in the US. So big shout
for
out to them.
sure.
I've got an order coming hopefully in the next few days.
Nice.
Massive. And so yeah, it's a great initiative, and things like that are always going to help. But I think those three main points, the general export fees and postage costs. You look at the number of volume of card stores in the US versus the UK, and then obviously the allocation of product. These are the three main points. I mean, they can all be broken down into further discussions, but if you look at the
Gotcha.
summary of the market overall, those are probably the three things that I'd point out.
Makes sense. Just curious, like from like a transaction perspective. So, for example, in the U.S., if I am in a show and I decide to buy a card that I like from a dealer, for example, I can either have the option to give them cash if I have the appropriate amount of cash in hand, or as long as the dealer is okay with it, we do direct sort of like transfer via platforms like PayPal, Wire, or even Zelle. It's a third party that associates with like the major banks here.
Mhm.
Like for example, when you were at the Tottenham Stadium, very jealous at the show. If you did any deals or if you were to make any deals, are the transactions pretty done similarly? It's either cash or whatever. Or what platforms do you guys use to transact?
Yeah, so the main transaction platform would probably be PayPal,
Okay.
just because I think again, if you're using goods and services, you have that
Mm-hmm.
wire protection,
Mm-hmm.
and it just makes things a lot easier. But then again, there are boundaries. There were vendors there that were US or Canada based, and so you're
Oh,
having to sort of negotiate prices in Canadian dollars or US dollars, and then there's also the conversion rates associated with those. And then if you don't have the cash, you then have to pay a transaction fee in order to transfer via PayPal. And so there's all
yeah.
these small niggling difficulties that come with performing transactions at card shows. But I think um, yeah, PayPal or cash is usually the go-to
Gotcha.
transaction at card shows. I've only been to one, and I hope to go to a few more. I unfortunately
Yeah.
missed the London Card Show, which was at a race course down in the southwest of
Wow, that's
England.
amazing.
Yeah, so it was a shame I couldn't go, but I've heard great feedback, and having had a look at the content that people were producing, it was an awesome turnout.
Yeah,
Um,
that's
but
awesome.
yeah, I think PayPal and Cash are probably the two main ones.
Gotcha. Moving on to our next question here. So, and I'm gonna do this all day, where I'm gonna compare like this is how we do things here in general, like how
Sure.
how is it done over
Yeah,
there.
I
So,
think it's only
uh,
right. I think it's only right.
right, and I think that's like where a lot of the audience's curiosity would be, at least from a North American or non-UK based perspective, is how
Yeah.
does it, compare to what I'm experiencing. So, let's say I have a card that's valued somewhere in $50,000 USD range. A lot of the times, of course, like if you're able to find a buyer on your own, that's amazing. But I think a lot of the decision at that point is, okay, which auction house am I going to send it to if you do decide to sell it? We have a couple options. Obviously, eBay is one, but there's a massive fee there. There's Alt, which also takes fees from you as a seller. I think maybe 8 to 10% percentage point based on their assessment of the value of the card. And then you have PWCC, and then you have Golden, you have Heritage. Um, at least those are the major ones that I think about, right? When I think about if I have a $50,000 card, that's where I would send it. What is the thought process as a international UK collector if you want to liquidate, like 45,000 pounds, maybe a little bit less, or over valued card? What is the first place you think about to take the card?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Unfortunately, from my point of view, I have not had that much to liquidate, and so I haven't really had to
Because
think
you're a
about it
hoarder.
very. Unfortunately, I've not been very lucky in breaks and boxes, ripping boxes. So I haven't. Unfortunately, I've not had to think about it. However, I think the two main ones that pop to mind are PWCC and Golden,
Got
just
it.
because I think their social media outreach is fairly large, and
Hmm.
they are probably the two most reliable names out
Yeah,
there at the moment.
gotcha.
Um, Again, I think it just comes down to there's not really a UK sort of high value auction marketplace. And there's a lot of, having been part of the communities here in the UK for quite a long time now, there is definitely some major gaps in the market that need to be filled. I think we'll obviously go on to talk about grading at some point, but I think that's also another one. And that's one of the major ones is, let's say, for example, there's more accessibility, more boxes are coming into the UK, more product, more singles, lots. If there is a one of one Lewis Hamilton in a Topps Chrome 2021, what's the first step? And the UK is very limited in that option, so that would be something that is a major gap in the market that definitely needs to be filled, just because of the way the market is growing here in the UK.
Right.
There is going to be those scenarios where people are going to have to, take the loss on export fees, cost postage, sellers fees from Goldin and PWCC.
I think it makes sense that those two are sort of like the most trusted, at least at this point, to auction off any high-end items. And I think there are enough eyes, essentially, that come to those sites to buy and to sell. If you could choose one of those two, which would you say has like sort of like or are they the same sort of like brand value?
I think in terms of brand value, like you say, they're very similar. But for me, I just like the content that Goldin creates. I think Ken is a great character. I think he's awesome. And I think that, he's been in the game long enough to understand, how it is to be a collector and have those big lots and big products. And so I would go with Goldin just because of Ken. If Ken is listening to this by any chance, Ken, I love you, man. You're the best.
I'll shoot him a text.
Amazing.
Cool. That was very interesting, and like you mentioned, we can segue into like sort of like the grading aspect of cards. So in the US, again, as an example, and I'm sure you have collector friends out in the US, grading is a very common approach to essentially increase the value of your asset. It's a chance, it's a risk as well, right? You could definitely get a 6 bag or 5 bag, etc. But hopefully you did the due diligence and you are hoping for a decent grade to increase the value of the asset. Me being in California, in Southern California, again, it's incredible advantage in my perspective where I, open boxes. Like I just said, I went to go get some boxes from the door, open boxes. And if I see any valuable cards that I feel like would, do much better if I do end up selling the card by grading it, I would do that, right? Because it almost feels like sometimes, I saw tons of raw cards on Whatnot and eBay as well that I personally open and are in good condition. But sometimes if it's like, let's say $1,000 card raw, that there's actually more sort of like value to be made with the asset if it grades a PSA 9 or 10 or whatever, right? So based on that, I would choose to grade it, and I would literally either, drive over that very afternoon or ship it down, right? And it takes a day. But that's not the case for a lot of the collectors out there. So we'd love to understand what your thought process is when you decide to grade. How often do you grade? And, how do you even grade your cards today?
Yeah. So I'm of the controversial opinion of keeping all my cards raw. I personally do not send any of my cards away for grading. I think that there is still work to be done across the major grading companies to remove subjectivity. I think that there is, logically for me, I can't think about sending a card away that I've spent $1,000, $2,000 on, and have two separate people look at it and potentially give it different grades. Yes, there are criteria in place. Yes, there are certain guidelines that everyone needs to follow. But I think overall, if you look at the process of it, there is always that human bias that's in place. And so for me, because I am that old school collector who's got everything raw, and I have this thing with grade. I have nothing against anyone who grades. I think it's a great thing to do. As you say, it's an investment risk that you're doing, because as you say, you might not get the grade you want, and then it might not be worth it in the end. But again, that's the risk associated with grading with any company. And so I think again, the marketplace for it, you look at the biggest sales of cards and stickers in history, in recent history. They've all been graded. There's been no massive sales, and so
Yeah.
I'm absolutely all for it. But I think it still needs a little bit of tweaking and a little bit of work to remove that human bias and subjectivity. Moving on from that, I think that there are a lot of great services popping up in the UK at the moment that are allowing for group submissions to the major grading companies like PSA, like SGC, like BGS. CSG is another massive one that's come up. I love their new cases. They look great. And so there are a lot of collectors here in the UK who are offering group submission services to PSA and all the other big collectors. And so they are able to access discounts with the major suppliers and able to offer competitive prices for grading within certain time frames. Two that I wanted to mention were Gym Sports Cards and the Grading Club with Aaron at Investing in Soccer. Big ups to you guys. You're doing a great job. And the services they offer are trustworthy. They are pure of heart collectors, and they want people to enjoy the hobby as much as they do. And so being able to offer those services only again adds to the growth of the UK market. I think one of the things that you will see in the upcoming years, is PSA, SGC. Will they set up home bases within Europe, within the UK, that will allow them to really explode in the market and submit even more cards than they would usually do. It's also the flip side of it there's a massive surge in NFTs at the moment. You're seeing a lot of NBA Top Shots, for example, and all the Topps Champions League product that's come out at the moment, all digital. And so there is a massive push in that step, but I think there will always be a demand for grading. And so I think the major graders will realize that opportunity eventually and see that it is definitely possible to expand the business, and not only their own business, but expand the UK market internationally with grading. But yeah, I think the first steps that people would follow is obviously going to the PSAs and the SGC websites direct, having a look at how much it will cost them to ship, how much it will cost them to actually grade the card itself, how much it will cost to get back, are there any export fees and such. That's obviously the first steps, and then probably looking at secondary group grading submissions. That would probably be the full process.
That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, I can't, I'm already impatient with my orders. I check it every day, what stage is it at? But that's definitely requiring a lot more patience on your end, especially when you're doing directly, I'm sure, with all the shipping involved. One of the great YouTube channels that I follow and watch every single video of is Baseball Card Collector Investor. It's Chris. Anyways, Chris is based out of, I believe, Netherlands. And he talks about how long it takes for him to get submissions back from SGC, PSA, BGS. It's quite long, even if he did a short turnaround time, just because of the postage and the import export stuff. So that's definitely a barrier that I hope gets resolved soon. We're finally down to our last question. I don't want to take up too much of your time, of your evening there. Last question is, if you can only keep one card in your collection and take it to your grave, what would it be?
So I thought about this before I came on, and I actually have it here with me.
Nice.
So as you may be able to tell, I have a Chelsea shirt on. I'm a big Chelsea collector. And for my last birthday, my best friend bought me this. And this is a Didier Drogba, numbered 13 of 99. It is a patch from Immaculate. Now, to most people, this is not the most.
That's awesome.
I can't see it because of the blurred background, maybe. It's not the most special card in the world, but it has the nostalgia in this is unbelievable. Drogba was a legendary player for Chelsea. He is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite player of all time to play for Chelsea Football Club. He's been mega for us in all the big games. He's won us many a trophy, and I have so many memories of him. I remember the first time I cried watching football was the Champions League final in 2012. I was in my living room, bawling my eyes out, just watching my team celebrate. And this man right here scored the winning penalty to win us that trophy. Even just thinking about it, just makes me emotional. And I think that's one of the things that's amazing about cards is you will flick through, and each and every single one will have a memory associated with it. And this is definitely one that that I will never ever sell. So thank you, Meriton, for buying me this. You're the man.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing that your friend got you that card too. That you didn't like go out and to get it
Yeah,
yourself.
I think that's also what makes it special, right? Having
Mhm.
realized that I am this big Chelsea fan, and to have that memory associated with it is just awesome. And I think
Exactly.
that's one of the things that we love about sports card collecting, right? And
Yeah.
it's not only the money associated with it. Yes, we spend tons on boxes and collecting, but that's only part and parcel of the enjoyment that we
Hmm.
get when we click through and we remember all those memories.
Right. All the nostalgias, for sure. That's why I can't like say no to any like Red Devil like South Korean soccer cards. It's just like it's such a reminder of like the crazy runs that we've had in the last few World Cups,
Yeah,
ups and downs, and how much as a country we've like progressed in soccer, like in general, football, with like Sonny, being where he is, and hopefully more future stars to come out of the country. So yeah, I totally get what you mean by like there's definitely the investment and like the making money or like making deals part of this all, but there's definitely that nostalgia that gets us kind of stay in the hobby,
yeah.
for a while. So thanks so much for your time, Lorik. Really, really glad that I got to catch up with you. Hopefully, I don't know if you have any plans to be in the US, but I definitely have plans to be in the UK in the future. Are you going to be
Yeah,
at the National?
I will not be at the National, unfortunately, but I will be on the West Coast in mid-August. So I'll be
Oh,
doing a
nice.
couple of weeks out there. So I'll be in San Diego, Los Angeles, and San Francisco
Amazing.
for about a couple of weeks. So hopefully we'll get to see some nice. I'll pop into some nice card stores if I see any.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. Let me know when you're in town, and happy to be your tour guide through all the hobby shops here in LA,
Amazing. That's the
at
only. I
least.
mean, that's the only reason I joined this call. Really, was to get a free tour guide. That's all.
I'll pick you up. Yeah, for sure. Let
Amazing.
me know for sure. I'll definitely be open to doing that and spending the time together. But
Awesome.
yeah, where can people come find you or come talk to you?
Yeah, so my IG is at Ghost Collects, GHST Collects. That's I don't post a lot of content. I think I'm like keeping up with the name Ghost. I'm just like not posting anything just to be mysterious. But I think in the coming months, once I establish a brand and once my collection really starts to pick up, I've still got a few cards that I'm looking to pick up. I will definitely be posting a lot more content. It's a fairly new page. I think we reached 250 followers without any posts, so I guess
Awesome.
that's an achievement.
Nice.
And so yeah, Ghost Collects on IG. Lorik Rashika, I'll spell it out for anyone who wants to. It's RASHICA on Facebook,
Wow.
and the same Ghost Collects on Discord. If anyone's got any Chelsea cards, do let me know.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, and I'll see you guys in the next episode, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, guys.
That was awesome.